So go ahead and look at the clock right now, or, your watch.
Just watch the seconds ticking by.
Yeah, exactly. It feels so linear, right? But what if I told you that in order for you to hear my voice right now, your ear had to send a physical, energetic signal backward in time to the microphone I'm speaking into?
Which, I mean, it sounds like pure science fiction.
Totally. But in the actual mathematics of quantum mechanics, this backward traveling wave has been, well, hiding in plain sight for about a century.
It really has. Physicists have known about the math pointing to this backward wave for generations. But for a very long time, the scientific community collectively just agreed to look the other way.
Yeah, like an open secret.
Yeah. They treated it as a glitch in the notation rather than a literal description of reality. Mostly because accepting it means dismantling our entire intuitive understanding of how time works.
And that dismantling process is exactly what we are doing in this deep dive. We are exploring an article by Zak Martin, and it's called The Timeless Handshake: John Cramer's Transactional Interpretation and the Reality of Past, Present, and Future.
It's such a great piece.
It is. The mission today is to look at physicist John G. Cramer's framework, because it solves one of the most frustrating, lingering mysteries in quantum mechanics, not by, adding new equations, but by taking the existing math completely literally. Cramer argues that the future is actively reaching backward to shape your present.
I know that sounds like a lot, and if you're listening, it's totally okay to feel a bit overwhelmed by quantum physics.
Oh, absolutely.
But this specific theory, it offers this really profound, accessible aha moment about the architecture of reality itself. To appreciate how radical Cramer's proposal is, we kind of need to look at why the physics community was so eager to ignore backward traveling waves in the first place.
Right, the broken math of the quantum world.
Exactly. If you are familiar with quantum mechanics, you probably already know the basics of the Copenhagen interpretation. Superposition, Schrödinger's cat.
The classics.
Yeah, the idea that a particle exists as this wave of probability until it is observed. And at that exact point, the wave just mysteriously collapses into a single definite state.
We are all taught about that wave function collapse. But the historical context of why physicists just accepted that explanation is crucial here. In the 1920s and 30s, the pioneers of quantum mechanics were just trying to build a working model of the atom.
They were highly pragmatic.
Yeah. The prevailing attitude became what is often summarized as, shut up and calculate.
Right. If the equations predicted the outcome of an experiment, they didn't really want to get bogged down in philosophical debates about, what the equations meant for the literal fabric of reality.
It just needed a functional tool.
And the tool they developed to calculate the probability of finding a particle in a specific location, it involves taking the wave function, which represents all the possible states, and multiplying it by something called its complex conjugate.
Okay, complex conjugate.
Right. And when physicists did that specific mathematical operation, it yielded incredibly accurate predictions. But the problem, conceptually at least, is hidden inside that term.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to break down the mechanics of what a complex conjugate actually is. This is where the backward time travel is hiding.
Yes, exactly.
So, in quantum equations, the evolution of a wave over time is described using imaginary numbers. Specifically, the letter I, which represents the square root of -1.
Right, a staple of advanced math.
Yeah, and the time variable in the equation is directly multiplied by this imaginary number.
So when you perform the mathematical operation of taking the complex conjugate, you were instructed to flip the mathematical sign of the imaginary numbers in your equation.
Just flip it.
Yep. Every positive I becomes a negative I, and vice versa.
But, and here's the crazy part, because time is bound to that imaginary number in the equation, flipping the sign of I literally reverses the direction of the time variable.
It's wild.
You flip the sign, and time goes from flowing forward to flowing backward. So, to calculate the probability of a particle's location, the foundational math of quantum mechanics basically requires you to multiply a forward-moving wave by a backward-moving wave.
Which is just a headache to think about.
Right. It's sort of like having a math equation to describe the trajectory of a thrown baseball, but the equation insists there's a negative shadow baseball flying backward through the air.
That's a great analogy.
And we usually just ignore the shadow baseball to make the math work in the real world. The founders of the Copenhagen interpretation saw that backward-moving mathematical wave and essentially said, well, that cannot be physically real.
They just deemed it a mathematical artifact, an abstraction.
Right.
They decided the forward-moving wave represents the real probabilities, and the backward-moving component is just, a trick you do on paper to get the real-world answer, and that just became the textbook standard.
The wave function mysteriously collapses into a particle, and we don't ask how.
And we certainly don't talk about retrocausality.
Never. But Cramer, working decades later, looked at that exact same math and just refused to accept the compromise. Like, if the most successful scientific theory in human history requires a backward-moving wave to function, then maybe the backward-moving wave is physically real.
What's fascinating here is that John G. Cramer decided not to ignore the shadow. He asked, what if that complex conjugate isn't an abstraction?
Which is a huge leap.
It is. But he wasn't actually the first to suggest this physical reality, though he was the one to fully apply it to quantum mechanics. He was building on the work of Richard Feynman and John Wheeler.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, back in the 1940s, they were playing with classical electrodynamics. Wheeler and Feynman noticed that James Clerk Maxwell's equations for light and electromagnetism also permit waves to travel forward and backward in time.
So this wasn't even a new problem.
Not at all. They proposed that an electron shaking in the present sends radiation into the future, but also sends radiation into the past. Cramer took that Wheeler-Feynman absorber theory and ported it directly into the quantum realm to solve the measurement problem.
Let's map out the actual mechanics of how Cramer says a quantum event happens, because it completely replaces the whole idea of a wave magically collapsing.
Right, it's a total paradigm shift.
In Cramer's transactional interpretation, a quantum event requires two distinct participants. You have an emitter and an absorber.
Let's use the classic example of a star emitting a photon of light that eventually hits your retina.
Okay, I like that.
The process begins with the star, the emitter. It sends out what Cramer calls an offer wave. In physics terminology, this is a retarded wave, meaning it travels forward in time, arriving later than it was sent.
Just normal time stuff.
Exactly. This offer wave ripples out through space and forward through time, carrying the potential for a photon.
Wait, stop right there. If that offer wave is rippling out through the universe into the future and it eventually hits my eye, how does my eye, like the absorber, send a confirmation wave back?
I know, it sounds impossible.
Right, because the event hasn't happened yet. How does the future know what to respond to if the photon hasn't even arrived?
That is the ultimate stumbling block. If we try to view this process from within the linear flow of time, you're imagining the offer wave moving through space, ticking off seconds, reaching your eye, and then your eye deciding to send the signal backward.
Yeah, that's exactly how I'm picturing it.
But quantum mechanics doesn't operate in that chronological sequence. To really grasp this, we have to shift our perspective entirely. We have to adopt a perspective outside of space-time altogether.
Okay, so we have to look at the universe as a four-dimensional block, where past, present, and future all exist simultaneously.
Precisely. It's exactly like stepping outside the solar system to watch the Earth orbit the sun, but applied to the dimension of time itself.
Wow.
From this timeless external vantage point, the emission of the star and the absorption at your retina are just two coordinates in a static block of spacetime. In Cramer's model, the emitter at the star generates a time-symmetric field.
Time-symmetric meaning it goes both ways.
Right. It simultaneously radiates an offer wave forward in time and an advanced wave backward in time. Your retina, the absorber, does the exact same thing.
So it's perfectly symmetrical.
Yes. When stimulated by the potential connection, your retina radiates a confirmation wave backward in time toward the star and a retarded wave forward in time.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's almost like sending a text message to a friend. That's the offer wave. But the message literally cannot leave your phone until your friend in the future has already hit reply, which is the confirmation wave.
That's a brilliant way to put it.
The past and future are literally collaborating to create the present moment. So we have waves moving in both directions from both locations. But how does this translate into a single observable photon hitting my eye?
Right, the actual transaction.
Yeah. I want to use an analogy here that strips away human consciousness, because the terms offer and confirmation can make it sound like the universe is having a conscious conversation.
Which it isn't.
Exactly. Imagine a massive, foggy canyon. You have two automated bridge building machines on opposite cliffs. Neither machine knows where the other is. They both start broadcasting acoustic sonar pings into the fog.
Okay, painting a picture.
The machine on the left is broadcasting pings moving left to right. The machine on the right is broadcasting pings moving right to left. Most of those sound waves just disappear into the void.
Right.
But at one specific angle, the frequency of a ping moving right perfectly overlaps with the frequency of a ping moving left. They interlock. A standing wave of resonance forms across the canyon.
A physical connection.
Yes. The machines are programmed so that only when that precise acoustic lock is established, they fire physical cables along that exact path of resonance. The bridge is only built where the interlocking waves have mapped the route.
That acoustic bridge is such a great way to visualize Cramer's standing wave. The offer wave from the star moving forward in time and the confirmation wave from your eye moving backward in time, they cross paths.
An interlock.
Exactly. Where they perfectly overlap, they multiply. They reinforce each other to create a standing wave of heightened probability. Cramer literally calls this the handshake across space-time.
The timeless handshake.
Right. It is only when this handshake is completed that the actual energy, the photon, is transferred from the star to your eye. There is no instantaneous, mysterious collapse of a probability wave. There is a physical transaction negotiated along a verified pathway.
In fact, Zak Martin's article highlights a direct quote from Cramer that summarizes this so cleanly. He says, "The emitter can be considered to produce an offer wave which travels to the absorber. The absorber then returns a confirmation wave to the emitter, and the transaction is completed with a handshake across spacetime."
It fundamentally rewrites our understanding of causality.
Completely.
I mean, the photon didn't leave the star a million years ago, travel through the void, and just randomly happen to strike your retina. The transaction was a cooperative venture. The existence of your retina in the future was a necessary condition for that specific photon to leave the star in the past.
But wait, that brings up a massive physical contradiction, though.
What's that?
If every particle in the universe is constantly radiating waves forward and backward in time, looking for a handshake, wouldn't space-time be an incomprehensible, chaotic soup of interference? Like if my eye is sending backward traveling waves into the deep past, why doesn't that energy affect other things? Why don't we see the physical echoes of the future everywhere?
This raises an important question. And the mechanism that prevents that chaos is perhaps the most elegant mathematical proof in Cramer's entire theory.
Okay, I'm ready.
It relies on wave cancellation, specifically destructive interference. We mentioned earlier that both the emitter and the absorber actually produce two waves, right?
Yeah.
One moving forward, one moving backward.
Right.
Let's look at the regions of space-time outside the actual event. Consider the time before the star even emitted the photon. The star sent an advanced waves backward into the deep past, but the absorber, your eye, also sent an advanced wave backward into the deep past. Because of the mathematical properties of these waves, the advanced wave from the star and the advanced wave from your eye are exactly 180 degrees out of phase with each other.
Meaning when one wave hits its peak, the other wave hits its lowest trough.
Exactly. They perfectly cancel each other out. They destructively interfere, summing to absolute zero energy.
Oh, wow.
And the exact same mechanism happens in the future after the photon hits your eye. The forward-moving offer wave from the star and the forward-moving wave from your eye are 180 degrees out of phase, perfectly canceling each other out.
That is incredible. They literally erase their own tracks everywhere except between the two events.
Yes. The interference is only constructive, meaning the waves only add together along the direct space-time path between the emission and the absorption.
So there are no extra waves just bouncing around.
None. Outside of that transaction zone, the math dictates total destructive interference. There is no chaotic soup of energy leaking into the deep past or the far future. What is left is a clean double wave connecting the two events. Half positive energy moving forward, half negative energy moving backward. It's a neat closed transaction.
Which perfectly resolves the biggest headache of the Copenhagen interpretation. You don't need a conscious observer to look at a system to force a wave to collapse.
No magic required.
Right, you just have perfectly balanced mechanics. But accepting these mechanics requires us to confront what this means for the nature of time itself, which is where Zak Martin's article really focuses its philosophical weight.
Yeah, the implications are huge.
If Cramer's math is taken literally, it provides immense, almost irrefutable physical backing for the block universe theory.
The block universe is basically the philosophical consensus that emerges naturally from both Einstein's relativity and Cramer's quantum mechanics. It posits that the past, present, and future are not a sequence of events where the past vanishes into memory and the future doesn't exist yet. Instead, time is just another dimension, like up, down, left, and right. Every moment that has ever happened and every moment that will ever happen exists simultaneously in a rigid, four-dimensional block.
So what does this all mean? When you combine the block universe with Cramer's handshake, It fundamentally alters our definition of the present moment.
It really does.
How should you view your own life, your past, and your future? I mean, our biological brains are wired to perceive time chronologically. We feel like we are riding on the crest of a wave, leaving a static past behind and pushing into a fluid, unwritten future. We call this the arrow of time.
But under the transactional interpretation, the arrow of time is exposed as a local illusion. It's a byproduct of our limited biological perception.
A biological handicap, almost.
Yeah, exactly. You feel like you are moving forward because the thermodynamic processes in your brain, like the building of memories, only operate in one direction. But at the fundamental quantum level, the present moment is not the leading edge of reality. The present moment is merely the focal point where the offer waves from the past and the confirmation waves from the future happen to be intersecting.
The future isn't a void waiting to be filled. The future is an active, existing structure that is casting shadows, or rather, casting confirmation waves backward into our current reality.
Observable reality only emerges where these waves converge.
I know a lot of people listening will immediately hit the philosophical wall of determinism and free will here.
Oh, for sure.
Like, if the future already exists and my future I has already sent a confirmation wave back to the star to ensure the photon arrives, then does free will exist at all? Are we just actors playing out a script that has already been finalized in the block universe?
That is the inevitable question when you introduce retrocausality. But Cramer's model is nuanced on this front. While the block universe view strongly leans toward determinism, the transactional interpretation still preserves the probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics, at least until the handshake is completed.
Wait, really? How does that work?
Well, the offer waves and confirmation waves are deterministic. They evolve according to strict mathematical equations. But the actual collapse, the interlocking of the handshake, remains probabilistic.
Oh, okay.
The star sends out countless offer waves, and countless potential absorbers send back confirmation waves. The universe still plays dice to determine which specific handshake actually closes the circuit. The difference is that in Cramer's universe, the dice are being rolled across time, rather than just in the present moment.
So the uncertainty is still there.
Yeah. From the four-dimensional perspective, the outcome is static. From our three-dimensional perspective, the probability still exists until the transaction closes.
It changes the way you view causality on a macro scale. We are so used to thinking that cause always precedes effect. I swing the bat, then the baseball flies. But Cramer shows us that at the foundational layer of reality, effect is just as responsible for the cause. The destination is actively participating in the journey of the particle.
It's a complete loop.
Let's pull all of these threads together because the sheer scale of what we've covered requires a bird's eye view. We started with the broken math of quantum collapse, right?
Right, that elephant in the room.
A mathematical formula that perfectly predicted reality but required multiplying a forward-moving wave by a backward-moving wave. Rather than dismiss the backward wave as a math trick to keep the linear timeline intact, John G. Cramer embraced it.
By embracing the complex conjugate as a physical reality, Cramer resurrected the Wheeler-Feynman theories and applied them to quantum mechanics. He replaced the mystical collapse of the wave function with a mechanical, perfectly symmetrical transaction. An offer wave from the past meets a confirmation wave from the future.
And through the mechanism of destructive interference, these advanced and retarded waves cancel each other out everywhere else in spacetime, leaving behind a clean, closed loop of energy transfer. It is a stunning model of a universe where past and future are locked in a continuous dialogue.
Co-creating the present moment inside a timeless, four-dimensional block. It removes the chaos. It removes the need for magical observers. It relies purely on the elegant geometry of waves interacting across time.
Right.
It forces us to accept that our perception of a one-way timeline is just a local illusion. The past isn't gone, and the future isn't unrealized.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with something to consider that scales this quantum mechanics theory back up to your daily human experience.
Oh, this is the fun part.
We've established the mechanics on a subatomic level. The future is actively sending confirmation waves backward to lock in our present reality. The future is constantly communicating with the past. Now, we usually write off our psychological quirks as just, pattern recognition.
Sure, just brain chemistry.
But think about those highly specific human experiences that defy standard chronology. Think about a jarring flash of intuition. Think about that dizzying physical sensation of déjà vu where your brain screams that you have absolutely lived this exact second before.
Yeah, we've all felt that.
Or a sudden, unexplainable gut feeling that makes you alter your routine, completely changing the trajectory of your day. Could it literally be a signal sent backward from your own future self, an acoustic ping from the other side of the canyon, verifying a pathway that has already been built?
It takes a rigorously mathematical framework and applies it to the deepest mysteries of human consciousness. If reality is a handshake across space-time, it is entirely possible that our minds are capable of feeling the grip.
I love that. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. The next time you glance at the clock or watch the timer ticking by, try to look past the illusion of the forward march. Try to view every moment you experience today as the physical meeting point of a past that hasn't left and a future that is already reaching out to pull you forward.